And let's stay with legal matters. The state in the Thabo Bester escape saga says if granted bail, Dr Nandipha Magudumana might escape. She's applying for bail in the Bloemfontein Magistrate's Court. But she argues that she's well known and will abide by the bail conditions. At the same time, she says she did not leave the country to Tanzania voluntarily. And of course, talking about how she was coerced into this and forced. Let's speak now to Nthabiseng Dubazana of Dubazana Attorneys, who is here to provide some analysis for us. Good evening to you, Nthabiseng, and thanks so much for your time. Let's start with this. I mean, she paints a picture of a victim who did not leave the country voluntarily, saying she was threatened by Thabo Bester. She says she was instructed to get into the vehicle and drive to an unknown destination. And I quote, "I was defenseless and hopeless," she says. Is this a strong enough argument to persuade the court to grant her bail?
Had she made that argument without referring to the application that she made in the High Court, perhaps it may have a bit of weight to it, but unfortunately in her own bail application that she did today, she made mention of the application that is currently being dealt with in the SCA, wherein in that affidavit she indicates that her extradition back to the country was done illegally and was therefore unconstitutional, and therefore all these charges that she's facing today should therefore be eradicated. Now, when we look at that argument vis-a-vis the argument that she made today, that doesn't make sense. If indeed you were taken against your will to a foreign country, the fact that South African police officers or assistance coming from your country was coming for you, you would willingly embrace it and bring yourself back home as a result and not try and fight that extradition. So now it leaves a question mark to say, if indeed you were under duress, why is it that you were away for so many months without trying to contact anybody? And then when you got wind of the fact that there's going to be an extradition that's coming, you then made the choice to appoint legal counsel in that country to try and defend the extradition that side and preventing you from coming back to the country.
At the same time, how are we to reconcile the moment when they reunited in the dock with what is being said right now? I don't know. I think there's quite some confusion there. So legally, does it make sense?
That's why the state brought it up in their opposing affidavit to say that when they reconciled on the 8th of August, they were quite lovey-dovey, they were holding hands, they were smiling at each other, therefore showing some kind of relationship that's between them. There hasn't been an argument in terms of the applicant's case, which is Dr. Nandipha's case, wherein there is a sort of a mental condition, let's say Stockholm syndrome, in that she fell in love with her captor. It's a well-known condition. That wasn't argued. So what can only be deduced is that the relationship that played out in front of our eyes was a relationship of pure love, we can say, or a mutual respect or mutual appreciation for each other. So that's why the state highlighted that significantly today. So it's the beauty of our court system is that it doesn't just rely only on viva voce evidence and written evidence. It also looks at your demeanor while you're busy giving some kind of evidence in the courtroom. So those things will be considered when the judgment is going to be handed down for the bail application.
And I wonder then what becomes the reading of the court in that particular regard, because today she was a completely different, Dr. Nandipha in the dock, because at first she would come in, wave and seemingly be cheerful. But today we saw a lot of tears.
Yeah, so today she portrayed the person who's very distraught, who's not happy, who is trying to basically beg for her life in front of this magistrate in order for her to be released out on bail so she can be a great mother to her kids. And yet there is no evidence that was led today in her own affidavit that shows that indeed she is a mother that wants to be present for her kids. There hasn't been anything that shows. I would have hoped that the defense attorney would have brought to the fray what Dr. Nandipha has been doing to try and reconcile with her kids, it would have played a very strong role, because kids, in terms of Section 28 of the Constitution, and also in terms of the Children's Act itself, I beg your pardon, both kids have a right to have both parents present in their lives. That would have worked significantly for her, but that was not adduced in her affidavit. Instead, the state brought scathing evidence that showed that she hasn't even contacted the father to try and see the children. There have been no visits. Instead, she keeps calling her attorneys and friends, but nothing to do with the children.
So I suppose then, listening to what you're saying, it sounds like there's quite a number of missing points that she could have canvassed in her defense. Then I suppose it's not a strong enough case to be granted bail then.
I really don't think it is a strong case at this stage. And also, when you look at the state dealing with the numerous cases that are yet to be leveled against her. So let's say, for argument's sake, that she is indeed granted bail in this matter. Those other matters that have been opened against her, as soon as she gets granted bail, the other police officers, investigating officers in those matters, are going to arrest her in any event. And then she now has to appear in all those other matters, in all those different courts, and then she still has to apply for bail in those matters. And when she does apply for bail in those different matters, it would be then unfortunate for her, because she would have a pending matter, which is the one that we are talking about today. So already there's a lot of factors that are working against her, and I understand the reason why she's trying to basically throw Thabo Bester under the bus in this situation by saying that it was duress and all of that. She wants to show the court that she lacked intention, so when the court looks at the doctrine of common purpose, if she says she lacked intention, which is a very strong and required element in such crimes, then she can probably get off. But unfortunately, she mixed it up with her High Court application in the same affidavit for today, which now contradicts what she was trying to get done.
I suppose it's going to be interesting then to see how the court rules on this one, because there was a lot of confusion even when she started linking it to say, so if you really were not, someone who left voluntarily, surely you would have then ran to the cops and say, please help me. It's quite an interesting one. And let's see then how the court, in fact, do rule on this particular matter. Thank you so much for your analysis. Do appreciate it. That is Nthabiseng Dubazana of Dubazana Attorneys. We'll continue to bring you more on this particular story, because a lot kept coming out of that particular court case.